I'm here to talk to you about my life. Yes? Okay. But first things first, if I was to give you advice on doing a presentation, always avoid the start before food. And second, after anybody's done any strenuous exercise, they'll remember those two things. But today's an exception, isn't it? So, firstly, thank you so much to Alumni Community Forum. The gentleman's gone. We're going to talk to you about work, life, and a little bit about my life as well. So, my journey. Where's our friend? Is he here? I've just said thank you to Alumni Community Forum for hosting this budget.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I want to talk to you a little bit about my life. Yeah? So it's got a statement here: your past doesn't define you, nor should it scare you. It is part of you. Be comfortable with who you are, where you're from, your parents' backgrounds, where you live, all of that. Very, very comfortable. I'm comfortable. I'm Rock. Comfortable. I'm Millbury. I'm comfortable in terms of everything aspect of it. But I am 48, 49 now. But there was a time where it was a little bit embarrassing. Yeah. Comfortable in terms of, if I'm wearing clothes from whoever, at the time it was shops in Mark, various other things. But it's a journey, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about that. So, I've said today I was born in Alum Rock. Not literally on Alum Rock, but in Alum Rock, yeah. So, some of you will not know, might know this, but this is Saltley Gate. I think it's a mobile phone shop now. But it used to be solely an action centre before. So, upbringing, what I would call innocent, yet constricted. So, those of you that might know what that word might mean, can you help me out? Help the rest of us? Constricted. Anybody? Constricted? Okay, Google that later. I would call it joyful, eventful, hopeful, but as you know, nothing, and actually nothing, goes to plan. And I mean literally nothing. Yeah? But that doesn't matter, does it? Because we can react, we can adapt, we can deal with things. We're all problem solvers here, we can deal with matters, we can adapt, and we can deal with things, yeah? But there's a quotation here that I want you to think about. This is a very powerful quotation. It's by a guy called Alvin Toffler. And Alvin Toffler says that illiterates of the 21st century are the people, again here, yeah, who can learn, unlearn, and relearn. Learn, unlearn, and relearn. So it's not about reading or writing. If somebody said to you, you're illiterate, it used to be 30 years back, 40 years back, the fact that you can't read or write. Now, literacy is about whether you can learn something, unlearn it, and relearn it. Yeah. Just remember that for now. We're going to come back, if we have time, to this later. Yeah. But let's talk about my story, my life, my journey, my education, or as I might say, lack of it. But first things first, education is not the same as intelligence. And intelligence is not the same as education. Yeah? But both of them don't lead to success. And we'll talk about what success means, because it means different things to different people. Yeah. So, first things first, some of you are going to have taken your GCSEs, some of you have had a cop-out, clear path. You don't even have to take your GCSEs. You're going to get it's like, you don't have to make a meal. You've got something ready, oven ready, cooked. Yeah. But some of you will take your GCSEs next year or the following year. Yeah. Let me tell you about my GCSEs. This is where my colleague helps me out. My GCSEs, yeah. So there's some handouts here. And those of you who are beady-eyed, sharp-eyed, because there's not many of you who are wearing glasses here, you can probably see what my results were. And my results are in the pack. So my results are in this pack. And you'll see from the pack what I achieved at the age of 16. Bearing in mind, I went to the best school in Birmingham. Hachil! So, what did I get? I got D, 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 E, E, E. It's all in there. Yeah? So, okay. So it didn't work out too well, did it? So my GCSE results are, don't look at that, don't look at the actual pack with my GCSE results. Are they in there, Mark? Yeah, so have a look at that. So there's a pack there with my GCSE results, my school report, and various other things, all to do with my education. So focus on that first in terms of my school report. Yeah, maybe one of them they're missing, I think. Yeah. Possibly. Yeah. But my school report's there. So it didn't end up that well, did it, for me? Who would be happy with this result? D, 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 okay, biology D, mathematics D, office studies and information processing D, physics D, chemistry E, French E, geography E, English language D, and English literature D. Who would be happy here with those results? Put their hand up. Whose parents would be happy with those results? Put their hand up. Anybody? Would you be happy? No. Nobody? No. Nobody. Do you think I was happy? No. What do you think my father said?
Where's the slipper?
He used a word that still stick in my memory. It says, not like was one word, ulun patai is another word, and be'okuf. These three words, I can't forget those words. Not like, ulun patai, and be'okuf. And he was right. D. Particularly when you've got the potential. If I never had the potential, then that's a different matter. So at the age of 16, what went wrong for me? I lost focus, because I've said before that I was on a track to do quite well, but I lost focus. I got married at the age of 16, for some of you that don't know. We're talking about the period of 1988 to 1989. So I got married, I went to Pakistan in 1988. My wedding was there September 1989. My GCSE results, my actual GCSEs were in May 1989. That's the period I'm talking about. So 16, very similar to you guys now. Imagine yourself in a situation where you miss your mock exams, and you do your exams, but you're also getting married. It's a different world, but that's the world that I was in. I'm not, claiming the fact that it's a bad thing or a good thing, but that's what we were dealing with. That's what I was dealing with. Yeah. So let's move on then. Yeah, it didn't end up too bad. Yeah. And I've got the evidence to show you. You've seen the evidence. Mustadi's giving me a little bit of dirty look here, I think.
There's some more guests that want to come in and benefit from your talk. Bobby and Ahmed.
Yeah, Bobby and Ahmed. Okay, he's laughing at us. There was a time he didn't laugh at him. There was a time, and he still gave me the dirty looks. There was a time that he didn't laugh, but there you go. Yeah. But anyway. Anyway, leaving school, yeah, very polite and courteous, although he is a little quiet at times. That hasn't changed, by the way. That is your personality. Because your personality develops from the age of 8 to 14. That's really when your personality develops. That's also when your brain is the sharpest, between the age of 8 and 14. Those above 14 thinking it's downhill. It is downhill, actually. Literally, it's downhill. Because that's the age. If you're going to learn a language, or if you're going to learn any skills, 8 to 14 is your best age. So when you're doing Quran first, or you're doing anything else, 8 to 14. Your mind is like a sponge, your brain is a sponge, you pick things up, and that's when you're developing your personality as well. That's when you're developing your mind in terms of where you are, and you're getting to know yourself. Yeah, you're getting to know yourself. After that, if you want to change, it's going to be where it is. Note the fact that it doesn't mention easily distracted or the fact that I was a class clown. A lot of reports now talk about easily distracted, distraction. Yeah, or they talk about something called class clown. This guy wants to be the entertainment. He wants to be the laugh and the joke. It didn't mention any of that. So overall, it wasn't too bad. Yeah. So when the plan doesn't work, what do you do? What can you do? So just think about that. What can you do? If the plan doesn't work, what can you do? So you plan, you actually do something, you check it and you act. It's a continuous cycle. Yeah, that's life. That's your journey. That's anything. If it doesn't work, and most things don't work according to plan, you go through this cycle. Plan, do, check and act. Plan, do, check and act. You revisit it. Yeah. So if I failed, I'm a bit of a goof. I'm a nalaik. I'm an ulul pata. And if somebody says ulul pata, your father says it, he's actually cussing himself. That's what it means, because it's a swear on your father. But if your father says it, you're just saying, you know what, you're just a lost cause. But if the plan doesn't work, what do you do? How do you recover? And this was my recovery. Yeah. My father gave me a choice. He says, I work at IMI. I can either give you a job at IMI or I can give you a job which is not far from here, Unity Biscuits. You learn £40 a week. What do you want to do? That was a shock tactic. I said, bloody hell, man, I need to do something. So I went and did a BTEC first, because my GCSE results, I didn't get any A to C's. So I can't go straight to an A-level situation. I have to go what we call GMEQ and a first level, which is even below your, we're just about resitting your GCSEs. So I did that, yeah, and I did that at a college called Bourneville, which is about 1.5 hours from where my house is. I moved on, BTEC National Diploma. I think you get the picture. Yeah. So I followed the pursuit of education. Yeah. Getting the picture?
Yeah.
Getting the picture? Do you get me?
Yes.
Do you get me? Do you get me? Do you get me? Do you get me? Yes. So education. So if I go back here, some professional qualifications here. So I really went deep into the whole education, got my degree, got my professional qualifications and all the rest of it, yeah. So, yeah, proud of that. But again, it took the failure first. So I got some of these qualifications, let me go through some of them with you. So I got a degree, yeah. But a degree, in some cases, isn't enough. So I got some professional qualifications in the field of banking, financial services, mortgage advice, banking advice and so forth. Yeah. And some of you are going to think, well, I thought we're also going to talk about apprenticeships. And this is my answer to you. But I think there's a lot of other things we can talk about. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we're still going to talk a little bit about success and a little bit about failure. But what does success look like to you? Mr. Ali has probably given you many lectures on this in terms of what success looks like. You've already talked about it, you're used to it and so forth. But it's different things to different people. And there's no right or wrong. And it's not one thing, and it's actually a continuous thing. Yeah. For some people, it might be becoming a millionaire. It's like, I want to be a millionaire. Now they talk about billionaire. Yeah. But all of these things, or any of these things, in any particular order, some people it's like work-life balance, work-life choice, big house, big car, money in the bank, family business, happiness, whatever that means. You know, marrying somebody of your own choice for some people. Yeah. Not going to university is successful. The parents not forcing them to university, that's a success for some people. You know, for some it's about balancing your religion, your deen with life, that's a big thing for people. If you talk to young people, that's a big thing. For some others, it's about giving back. It's about working with people who are underprivileged. Yeah. All of these things. Yeah. Professional qualifications, all of these things. Any of these things, one of these things, they're all part of a personal choice. And it's a personal choice. Yeah. Okay. But it changes. It changes. Your definition of success is a journey. It changes and it's evolving. Yeah. There's no one stage. But what it starts off with is about knowing you. What makes you tick? What do you know about yourself? Yeah. This is the key here. And this takes a lifetime. I said to you, I'm nearly 49 now. And I'm still on the journey of knowing myself. But it starts with what you don't like. Because what you like is harder. What you want to do is harder. Something that I don't like. This is something that doesn't agree with me. That's a process of elimination. So if you're going down a particular route of finding yourself, you find things that you don't agree with, you disagree with, what you don't like, yeah, as opposed to I like. Because I like is a harder thing to define than what you don't like. That don't like might be the fact that I don't want to work in an office. I don't want a 9 to 5. I don't want to go to university. I don't want to do X, Y, Z. That's easier. So you start with, it's like with food. You don't know sometimes what you don't know. Because you've not had that experience. Yeah. So all of this is about knowing yourself. And this is where I'm going to slightly confuse people intentionally. Yeah. So there's certain things that you know, there's certain things that you don't know. And there's certain things that you know that you don't know, and there's other things that you know that you don't know. But there's also something that you don't know that you don't know. That's a blind spot. So there, again, certain things that you know, certain things that you know that you don't know. Yeah. And there's certain things that you know that you don't know much about, but you know a little bit about. So all of these things come in. But the biggest thing is that what you don't know, you don't know. That's the tricky thing. What you don't know, what you don't know. So again, a lot of this, and again, these slides are available, and you can go through this and so forth. Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about skills, attributes, and traits. So if I said to you, what is a skill? What's an attribute and what's a trait? It might not be easy for you to define those words. Skill, attribute, and trait. Yeah. But what I'll do is, or what we like to do is, talk about something called trust. If somebody said to you, trust, you might think, okay, trust means honesty. Do I trust this? But it's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. So we're going to talk a little about trust. So trust, which is the number one thing that employers want. It's the number one thing that everybody wants in life. They want to be able to trust a brand, a car, anything. Trust a person. But it's got different definitions. It's like, for example, if you go to a professional, how do you trust them? And this is how you trust. You build trust. Yeah, it's very important in life. You start thinking about this. Part of it is about your character. Part of this is about your competence. Yeah. If I trust you with something, I've also got to think that, would you be able to deliver on that? So this is not about whether you're honest. This is not about whether you have the right intention. It's also whether you have the capability, do you have the capacity, do you have the skills and knowledge to actually do it? Yeah. And how do I do that? That goes about track record. So if an employer is thinking, can I trust this person? They're looking at, and that's the question that they're thinking about when they want to give you a job, or when people want to work with you. They think about your character, which is your behaviors, but they also think about your competence. And how do you demonstrate competence? You demonstrate competence with results, which is about track record. So if I said to you, demonstrate something, yeah, and you're writing something on your CV, because your CV is effectively building trust. That's what it's trying to do. It's trying to build trust. They say, you know what, here's my details, trust me with this job, I can do this job. The person thinking, okay, why would I trust him? So you've got to answer competence. How do you answer competence? You answer competence with the results. I've done this before. I've had experience in doing this. Yeah. I'm credible. I've delivered performance. I've delivered results. I've got the knowledge. I've got the skills. And I've got the behavior. And I can demonstrate all of that in this. So trust has many areas, many divisions, subsections. And you've got to think about trust. So next time somebody mentions the word trust, yeah. You've got to think, every single time you're doing a pitch to somebody, you're trying to, if you're a salesperson, you're pitching, yeah, you've got to be able to show trust. If you're sending your CV, you've got to be able to do that. If you're an organization looking for funding or partnership work or anything else, that's number one. Trust is the number one currency. If you can't trust something, then you're not going to do business with them. You're not going to hire them, you're not going to recruit them, you're not going to work with them, you're not going to partner with them. Yeah, it's number one thing in life, trust. Yeah, again, number one thing in terms of how relationships break as well, lack of trust. Partnerships break because of trust. Yeah. So trust is across the organisation absolutely vital. Yeah. And there's different ways to demonstrate it, different ways to show it. So I want you to think about trust differently now going forward. Yeah. There's a quotation here, Muhammad Ali, not our Mr. Ali, but this is the greatest Muhammad Ali. He says something about will and skill. Yeah. So take time to read this. Success is having a desire, a dream, a vision. You have to have the skill and the will. So if you've got the skill but no will, then you're going to struggle. But if you've got the will but no skill, then you're going to struggle as well. So it's a combination of both. Yeah. And again, we'll have an opportunity to talk about that. Yeah. But first things first, you know, my father had a job at IMI, I mentioned earlier on. He was going to give me a job at IMI. He had that job for nearly 30 years, 28 years. 28 years. And if you talk about some of the other people in this room and their fathers and their uncles and so forth, they'll tell you X, Y, Z person, they've worked at this factory for 25 years, 20 years, 18 years, 30 years, 40 years, and so forth. Because at the time, there was something called job for life. Yeah. You knew where you stood. You could go to a company, you know, some of your grandfathers and so forth, they'll tell you, they've all, you know, if they actually where you work, they'll mention one company. They may have worked for 2 or 3 very quickly, but it's mainly one main career. Yeah. That was average, that was the norm. It happened. A job for life. How many jobs do you think I've had? So I'm 40, imagine I'm 50 now, 49, yeah. How many jobs have I had? So you know that I've gone to university. You know I failed at my deals, yeah? Yeah. 10, 11 jobs, okay. Give me some jobs do you think I've had? Yeah.
Maybe working in the store.
Store, yeah. Store. Anybody else?
Working inside the office, working working in the office at
Yes. Anybody from anything else?
Security.
Yeah, okay. There's some cheating going on here. Okay. So let me tell you a little about some of the jobs I've had. Retail assistant times 2. I've had 2 of those. Security officer times 2 as well. 2 of those. Customer service representative. Yeah. Taking telephone calls, that is. A call center. Assistant accountant. Accounts assistant. Budget support officer. Something called a billing analyst. Pensions reviewer. Calculations team contractor. Complaint handling financial services contractor, compliance officer, endowments with profits contractor, a financial advisor, a mortgage broker, director of 7 times, quite a lot of successful businesses, but many more unsuccessful businesses. I've got a cleaning business, went down the pan. I had a recruitment business, went down the pan. We had our first eBay business, lost money on that. I lost money on nearly quite a lot of different types of businesses as well. Yeah. So quite a few businesses. Had a courier business, lost money on that as well. So yeah, several of those. Managing director once, something called founder now of various projects, chairman, co-founder. I'm a shareholder now, business mentor, author, podcaster, CEO. One of the most things I'm proud of is something at the bottom. Oh, okay. Did I mention the author? Did I mention that I've written 3 books? Mashallah, thank you so much, Awal. The canny bites, they're on Amazon. Yeah. They're not selling that well, but they're on Amazon, yeah. Okay, so I run a company called Pathway Group. Yeah, we do apprenticeships. Of course, we do apprenticeships. But we do a lot of other work as well, skills. We get people back into employment. We're award winning, some of our awards. I'll do a little bit of a presentation, isn't it? So normally I don't get to see many of you more. Some of you might be serving cups of tea and drinks and that and so forth. So I don't get much time to do a little bit of what we call PR here. So brand of the year, best audit outcome, quite a few awards there. Yeah. I've also become a judge of something called the Great British Entrepreneur Awards. Been a judge for 5 years, so I judge other entrepreneurs. Run a company called Nationwide Care Services. We're a care provider, so we're employing 800 people. That's a lot of people. 800 people. Yeah, think about that. We're the biggest provider in Derby, second biggest in Birmingham, covering Nottingham, Worcestershire, and so forth. There's a lot of people there we're employing. But let's talk about goals. So I'm a guy that, at the age of 16, flopped, fell on his face, embarrassed. I couldn't look my father in the eye. Yeah. Not the fact that that was easy for me, but I couldn't. Yeah. And not only did I flop, but he also said the fact that the rest of them, your other brothers, they're going to go down this particular route as well. So I had a lot to prove. Yeah. A lot to prove. So lifetime goals. This is where you've got to do a little bit of work. I'm also conscious of the fact that we're running out of time and food's going to come in and
About 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. So we're not going to do any of the exercises today because I think it's going to take too much of your time. So, and in fact, I might just skip some of this. Yeah. Because what it is when you have a lifetime goal, it's too much, it's complicated. So what you can't think of is, you can't think 20 years ahead or 10 years ahead. You know, there was a time when we went to interview, they used to say, where do you want to be in 10 years' time? Then they started saying, where do you want to be in 5 years' time? Now, you've got to think about a year at a time because the world changes too quick. You can't be thinking 5 years, 10 years, whatever. You've got to have a vision that this is the sort of life I want, this is what I want to do, but you've got to break it down. Because if you don't break it down, if you start thinking 20 years time, yeah, it's gonna be harder for you to deal with it. If you've got to break it down in chunks and break your goals down, yeah, and write that down in your mind, or even if it's on your phone, and think about your thinking because you get to know yourself. Yeah, that's a technique which works. So I won't cover your lifetime goals. And then, you know what, we won't go through this. But what I will say is that young people today have got it even harder than they were before. So, you know, when somebody says to you, your life is easy, look at me, you know, we used to walk and nobody, you know, our fathers might say, you know, I used to, you know, nobody used to give me a cab ride or used to pick me up. I used to walk from there to there and that's all fine. That's the truth. Yeah. Some might say, well, I used to go to mosque and we used to come back at 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock and so forth. All correct, but it's harder for you now. It's harder, and if I have time, I'm going to go through details why it's harder. Because there's more of you, there's more competition, and your bar is higher. So you've got to be able to be more than others. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for young people. So also there's less jobs because of technology. Yeah. Technology is taking jobs away from all of us. So your skills levels are going to be higher. So if you imagine this, there's a lot of people at this moment in time working in warehouses because that's where the jobs are. They're working in care. These sectors potentially in 10 years' time might not exist because they can use technology, they can use robots, they can use all the computer system to even make it even more easier. And that's called productivity. Yeah. So also at the same time, what we call knowledge has less power. Before, if you knew something, you had a competitive advantage. Now, knowing something doesn't give you competitive advantage because knowledge is something you can seek. You can learn something at 11 o'clock applied. So you got YouTube. Anybody can become a little bit of a plumber. Anybody can fix this. They don't need that because they can learn something at say 11 o'clock. They can apply it at 12 o'clock. So it's your ability to learn information which is important. So knowledge hasn't got power. It's your skills and your behaviors and how you build trust. That's the matter. But where has it all gone wrong for particularly the British Asian community? And where I think it's gone wrong is with this gentleman here. Some of you will remember, some of you won't know who this person is.
Tony Blair.
He said something about education, and he had two parts to it. One of it was about degrees. He had a target of getting 50% of young people into degree education. Did you think at the time, was it the right thing? Was it employers? Was that what employers wanted? Was he where the future was going? And what was the point of those degrees? Were those degrees adapted to the workforce? Because the degree now is probably the same sort of degree that was the case 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. They haven't changed. How you deliver qualifications have changed, they've gone online, but the actual core content hasn't drastically changed. Yeah. Is that right or is that wrong? So if somebody went and did an MBA, which is a high-level management course, does that tell you the fact that they're experts in business? Not necessarily. Yeah. What's actually happened is that this kid has come on the scene. You might be able to tell that he's the actual son of Tony Blair. His name is Ewan Blair. And you know what he says? He says, apprenticeships are the way. It's not degrees. There's too many people going and doing degrees. And what are they doing? They're getting underemployment. They can't get the jobs in the degrees that they've got. Yeah. And there's a recurring theme. There's too many people going into university, way too many. Yeah. And the jobs aren't there. And the jobs that are there are not for degree level. Because there's no planning going on. And then there's too many people who are what we call NEETs. N-E-E-T. Not in education, employment and training. So what you've got is a lot of Asians going into degrees. At the same time, many of them are in NEETs. And where the work is in the middle. Middle is where all the effort should be. And middle is about them learning on the job, the developing. That could be apprenticeships, that could be just working. That could be just working on skills that are relevant to the work that they want to do. So whether that's construction, whether that's engineering, wherever it is, applying and getting skills that are relevant. So here, in 2017, we have nearly 200,000 young people. I don't believe this stat, but they're saying that only 2,500 were not in education, employment and training. In reality, there's a lot of hidden needs, people that we don't know about. Yeah. we've got just for the figures, we've got 66 million people in the UK. That's 2019. There was a census done in 2011, and obviously recently, which some of you are aware of. We're waiting on the results of those figures. 11.7 million are young people, so there's more and more young people. It's getting harder, it's tougher. Yeah. Tougher, tougher, tougher. So, BAME Apprenticeship Awards, I'll tell you a little bit about why we set this up in 2016. Because if you talk about apprenticeships, parents didn't know. Parents thought that apprenticeships are for people who are what we call blue-collar workers. Blue-collar means manual. So white collar means office-based. Blue-collar means manual. So you got a blue-collar worker and a white-collar worker. Blue-collar is like overalls. They used to wear overalls. So so apprenticeships are for blue-collar workers, manual grade jobs, and there was a stigma. So if your son, daughter failed, got thrown out of say college or didn't want to do it or so forth, then they started looking at apprenticeships. So apprenticeships for some people was a second choice. Apprenticeships are wrongly the second choice. They should be not necessarily the first choice, but they should be on equal footing to anything else. So apprenticeships are not for people that have failed. Apprenticeships are a passage or a right of way because of choice. Yeah, you don't do an apprenticeship because you have no choice. You do an apprenticeship because you have choice. So we did the BAME Apprenticeship Award. But there's just not enough. This is an article in a FE paper which says it's a national disgrace. They use this word called BAME. BAME is, some of you will know, it defines Asians and black people together and minority ethnics. So black, Asian, minority ethnics. 10 years ago the word used to be BME, community, also BEM, BAEM. All of these words define black, Asian, minority ethnics. So when they talk about BAME, they're talking about Asians, they're talking about blacks, they're talking about ethnic minorities. Yeah. And just not enough. Not enough going into apprenticeships, and he says it's a national disgrace because what they do is they've got the figures of how many Asians there are, British Asians, in the area, in the country, and how many Asians are going into apprenticeships. They're just not enough. Yeah. So, graduates, this figure, if you start looking at, you start Google research here, it says to you, graduates earn 30,000, you think, bloody hell, that's a lot of money. £30,000, yeah, median. But median doesn't tell you the picture. There's stats and there's damn statistics. There's something called lies and statistics there. And what this is something called median. And median is overinflated. There's a mode median and there's a, what this is, if you've got the mode, which is where the most popular is in terms of salary, so median averages it out. So what it does is there's some salary bandings in banking, in technology. Yeah. They pay 45, 50,000 pounds because they're the computer programmers, they're the mathematical engineers. Yeah, they're also engineers. They're also the high level earners. What happens is the salary banding is skewed. Then you've got average graduate jobs. It's not 30,000. That figure is close to 20,000, and you'd be lucky even then to get 20,000. So your salary is likely to be 18 to 20,000, 18 to 20, just over 20,000. That's a graduate. But if you are a graduate, yeah, you've probably got nearly £50,000 worth of debt. £50,000 worth of debt. That's going to be a lifetime that you're going to be paying back. Yes, of course, you don't pay until you're on a certain level. So,
are we doing for time, sir? Who's here?
The food is here.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
So, a couple of key pointers here. I'm going to try and wrap up, if I may. Don't follow the majority. Get to know yourself. Get to know what works for you. And follow your own path in terms of what works for you. Yeah. Apprenticeships are a real solution. They can work. They do work. Do your own research. These are the skills that the employers want. top 30 skills. You might know, you might not know. What do they want? They want people who can use Microsoft Outlook. If you don't know how to use email, and I'm not talking about Gmail, I'm not talking about Hotmail, I'm not talking about Yahoo or anything else, I'm talking about Microsoft Outlook. Yeah. Then, and some of them will be asking me to do tests. That's a key skill. SharePoint is an application. Microsoft OneDrive, Microsoft Teams. Yeah. You've got Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, Power BI. You know why Microsoft is one of the richest? Because a lot of these are Microsoft tools. Yeah. A lot of these are Microsoft tools. They want you to be able to use LinkedIn. Some of the skills that they want is Shopify. Shopify is a massive skill at the moment. Some of our employers want, you know, if you are Amazon seller. So they're not all, it's not a case of these skills are everybody that you need. Depends on the field that you're going into. Yeah. So there's a lot of skills here. So I was going to go through all of this, but I don't think we've got time, have we? Yeah. So some final takeaways, final pointers. Firstly, nothing's going to go as planned. I told you about my 16-year-old results. Someone knows this, yeah. It's about your ability to react and adapt to change. Don't look for perfection. I didn't get perfection. There is no perfection. Just look at what you can do and improve. It's a continuous journey. Play to your strengths as well. Understand your strengths. Yeah. Sometimes we focus too much on our weaknesses. You know, we're not good at this. We're not good at this. Whatever you're not good at isn't going to give you a competitive advantage. What you're good at is what is going to give you a competitive advantage. So if you focus on your skills, you know, if you focus on your strengths, people will say, this guy is good at this. Because that's what's going to give you the competitive advantage. And what you've got to do is, you can't give up. So these number 3 and 4 are linked. Learning is a lifestyle. So it's not a case of, you know what, I've given up school and now that's it, learning ends. Even if you're working for any type of organization, it's going to be continuous lifelong learning. That might not be books, that might not be classes, but it's going to be continuously learning. And you've got to be able to learn and know how you learn. You know, do you learn by visual? Do you learn by somebody showing you? Do you learn by doing the task yourself? It's about knowing yourself. Yeah. Avoid complacency. Don't rest. Keep doing, keep striving, keep challenging. Any thoughts, any questions? And I don't think we've got time for any questions.
No, the guys did have questions.
Oh my god, okay. These are planted questions.
No, genuine questions.
You mentioned success earlier and what it may be for others, but what was success for you?
Wow.
Okay, so
wow. Great question. That was a good question.
I think the key is working in shorter time frames. So, you know, you have a yearly plan. So what you don't do is, again, you know, we have this thing. Success for me, you know, when I was like 14, I used to walk down Brockers Road, going to Hudgel, and I thought to myself, you know what, wouldn't it be good to have a house on Brockers Road? I wasn't thinking Bromford Road, I wasn't thinking Coleshill Road, I wasn't thinking anything else. For me, Brockers Road. That was success for me. But what happens is, when you grow through your mind, and your mind changes, and it's good to change your mind. You know, this U-turn, you know what, don't do a U-turn. You know what, the people who change their mind are the people who are actually more advanced than the people who don't. Because what it does is that you say, I've changed my thinking. So my success, or what was success, is ever evolving, ever changing. So it's not like a destination. At this moment in time, it's about growing, because you've got to grow. If you don't grow, you become stagnant. If you become stagnant and you don't challenge yourself, it's a downward trend. So this is where your work has to be challenging, your work has to be fruitful, and it has to give you value, and you have to give value. And if you can get that, then I think that's a good.
You faced when you started Pathway Group?
let me say to you, you know this business that I've started, Pathway Group, Nationwide Care Services. This is at the end of my sort of failure. So, for example, I'm say 49 now. Pathway Group was started in 2008. Initially, the business was started in 2000. We failed. Had a centre in Stratford Road that failed. We started again. We failed. I was in debt. So by the age of 2005, I had credit card debts. I had no money. Yeah. But there was no business, nothing. So from 2005 to now, which is really the last 15 years, is where we've built the business up. So Nationwide Care Services was the care company. I started that in 2005 with 2 other colleagues. I had a minor heart issue. So at the age of 33, I was effectively, it's an angina attack. So I had a little bit of a heart issue, which basically took me out. My father passed away in 2007. So your first 3 years of business is always going to be a struggle. If you can earn anything in that particular period of time, even first 2 years is going to be a struggle, but usually 3 years, it's about surviving and thinking that you can stabilize that business. It's only when then you start thinking about, is this what I want to do? Is this the right area for me? And what you call double down. You get obsessed by it. And when you get obsessed in a positive light, then that's dedication, which is different to motivation. Motivation is temporary. Dedication is you living and breathing it. You're thinking about it continuously. It's like when you're thinking about, say, fitness. You're on a fitness regime, and you think about your weight. You think about going to the gym, and you might even be able to go to the gym 2 or 3 times a day. If you're completely obsessed, you go in the morning and you go in the evening, because you're obsessed by it. You'll push yourself. But it's about maintaining that. That's dedication.
Okay, I think we've got one final question. May you always ask a question. No? Okay, go for it. Last chance, guys, quick. No.
These are plenty of questions there.
Confidence.
Sorry?
Confidence. If you haven't got a plan, you can't do nothing. You have a plan. You can't make a building unless you can't make a building. You don't know what to do. Always work with a team and follow and listen to other people. Don't. Wow.
Well done, Omar.
Thank you. Okay, no more questions. On that note, can we have a round of applause to the